Yo, what is up, YouTube? It's your boy YBP Gang, YBP Nation, YBP Boxing, YBP MMA. And today I'm coming back with another video. Today we're going to be breaking down what happened at UFC 302. This is an immediate reaction right after the card. Makhachev, Poirier. Crazy card. Psych, bro. Nah, it was not a crazy card. Hella decisions, bro. A lot of decisions on the card. So usually when I used to do these videos back in the day, I would go in depth. I'd go on like every single fight. I'm not gonna lie, I was out at a function, so I missed like most of the card, and apparently, actually, I saw glimpses. I saw a little bit of Perez Edwards, but from the looks of it, from MMA Twitter, and just looking at the results, a lot of decisions, like 8 decisions on the card. People were really disappointed with what they saw. I did see Jailton Almeida finished Alexander Romanov. Very surprised by that. I thought coming off of the Derek Lewis fight that he would, go to a unanimous decision victory, especially a guy with Romanov with the pedigree that he has on the ground. But he was able to find the submission, and very impressive. Doesn't really change too much of like how much I think about him. I think with this fight, I was hoping to see some striking. I don't know if we saw some of that in the fight. Got to go back and rewatch, but nothing changed with me. Like what I thought about him before the fight stayed the same. You go into a fight with Cesar Almeida and Roman Kopylov. I saw in the stats like Kopylov became a wrestler. Thought it would be mostly kickboxing, and that played the difference in that fight. That was a big MMA Twitter debate, like who was better. A lot of people were like, why is Cesar Almeida not a bigger favorite? People were like, Roman Kopylov should be minus 300. What the heck? So split decision ultimately. Some weird judging on the card. Definitely a fight I got to rewatch, but just my minimal thoughts on that. Didn't catch Randy Brown, Dos Santos, Nico Price Morono. Seems like Nico Price turned back the clock coming off of the Robbie Lawler loss, KO loss, decision victory there. Definitely got to rewatch that. But people said like it was a terrible performance, so maybe I shouldn't rewatch it. Now to the fights that I actually did watch. I did catch the last 3 fights on the card, and the last 3 fights seem to, I think, will be the most talked about. Will have the most narratives coming out of it. First fight, Holland, not first fight of the card, but first finish on the main card. Kevin Holland going up against Mikhail Jacek. Fight started out kind of crazy for Holland, and it seemed like, honestly, going to the fight, path to least resistance was Holland going out there grappling, getting a takedown, and submitting a guy who's been submitted by literally everyone. Probably got submitted by your grandma, bro. Like, honestly, like, this guy, he gets submitted for a living. That's the way you beat him. Mikhail Jacek, good hands, though. He's on the feet, and he showed that. He rocked Holland early, dropped him, and Holland was almost forced to grapple. Honestly, if he just got, like, rocked, like, in the way that, it's like Izzy Pereira, like, standing count, if he somehow got rocked but not fell to the ground, he probably wouldn't have grappled at all. Like, if it was just up to him, he probably would have just struck. That's just the guy Holland is. He's the black Michael Chandler I'd like to compare him to. Like, he just fights to entertain, he just fights to fight, not necessarily fight to win. And he got a layup, and he almost bottled it. Mikhail Jacek drops him early, but Holland gets the submission victory in round 1. Falls into, I think Mikhail Jacek go for the ground and pound, and then he just wrapped his, long limbs, man. 84-inch reach. Got his legs around his head, got the arm, and just started squeezing. Mikhail Jacek was complaining a little bit about the stoppage, saying that he didn't tap, but his arm was like shattered, bro. Like, there was nothing you could really do about that. I mean, if it's dislocated like that, the arm's off. I'm all for fighters like fighting until they can't, especially if it's on their own merit. They're the ones who went through a training camp. They're the ones who go through the hard work of you making all the sacrifices, training long hours. But when you have a situation like that, where it's like it's clearly broken, no, that fight should be stopped. There's nothing to complain there. Clear Kevin Holland win. And like I said, man, I mean, Holland, he needs to go out there when he has matchups like this, just do what you need to do and find the path to least resistance and stop trying to give the fans a show. You know what I mean? That's how you're going to have longevity in the game. But, like, I mean, the commentary team even said it. Like, he might have the record for, most fights in the UFC soon, because, like, that's why I don't, like, who am I to tell him about longevity in the UFC? This guy is, like, fighting every other weekend, staying active in there, fighting everybody. He'll, he fight Hamzat, he'll go up to heavyweight, fight Derek Lewis, go down and fight Pantoja. Like, he's just that type of guy. If they need him for a card, need him for a main event, need him for a co-main event, he'll be there, right there to take the call, get the answer. But yeah, nothing crazy changed for me when it comes to Holland. You want to give him Neil Magny next or something like that? I don't know. Hopefully, I'll try to come up with a what's next video tomorrow. But yeah, nothing crazy came out of this fight. Just, squash matches as it should have been. A little more chaotic than it probably should have been. Sean Strickland, Paulo Costa. A lot of thoughts on this, honestly. I had my initial thoughts. I thought that Costa, like I said, I didn't make a breakdown for this, but I was talking to one of my friends about the about the fight, like my predictions, like what I thought, and just listening to other analysts, I kind of came to the same predicament that like Strickland just struggles with, or these fights end up just being scored. Now I don't know if it's bad judging. I don't know if it could be that too. The guy Dave Trinanelli or whatever his name is, it's not really relevant. The guy's a terrible judge, had terrible judging all night. But what we can agree is there were a lot of rounds in that fight where they were way closer than they needed to be. And honestly, optically, looked like maybe you can get the fight to Costa. It just seems like Strickland has a struggle with power punches. We saw it with Cannonier, we saw it with Dricus du Plessis, and we saw it with Costa a little bit there too. Thank God he got that. I don't think it mattered. I think he could have lost that round and he probably, would have won. Because two judges gave it 49-46 and 50-45 in favor of Strickland. I think a lot of people probably had it that way. Maybe you give... I don't really know what round they gave to Costa. Because I thought round one was pretty close. I thought the big moment for Strickland was that he caught him and then he hit him with a right hook, I think. And then dropped him, but I don't know. You could say that's just a punch. He didn't necessarily knock him down, and he just got off balance. If that's what we're going off of, then I think that's a Costa round. But that was the biggest moment of the round. And you also got to take into account Costa was on the back foot like majority of the fight, so it's going to be hard to score a fight for a fighter who's Strickland's landing more shots overall, and then Costa's on his back foot. So even if he's landing the more damaging shots, it's kind of hard to give the round to that guy, just optically. But he ended up getting one guy's scorecard, 49-46, Dave Trinanelli. And yeah, man, I mean, Strickland, he was just on cruise control. I never saw him turn up like he did in some of the other fights I've seen. Not his best performance at all. He even acknowledged like kind of a dud of a fight. Thought it was going to be a little more entertaining. I didn't think it was that bad, but I did expect a little more out of Strickland. I thought he'd put the pressure on him. And honestly, that version of Costa that we saw out there, I thought Strickland definitely could have pushed for like KO, honestly. Costa, he didn't look bad, but like I like the kicks. He hurt Strickland early with those, but as the fight went on, you could see that Costa was starting to wilt, starting to get weaker in the fight, and I thought those are the moments where Strickland could have really put it on him. But instead, I mean, he just he stays at this monotone level. Like he just stays at this medium and never really goes up or down. It wasn't until like the final seconds of the fifth round that we saw this boost of energy, like boom, he actually drops him. That was a crazy moment in the fight. And I thought, in my mind, if there was any way that you could possibly score the fight for Costa, that all got eliminated. Like after he did that, like you can't give the fifth to him. One was close. 4, maybe you could score for Costa. And then it really came down to 5. If you're being generous, because it was bad judging. But I'm saying generously, if we're just scoring rounds, maybe it's 2-2. Maybe if you're being so nice to Costa. Round 5 was Costa's round to possibly win it, and he was doing pretty good in that round. And Sean Strickland just, shut it up right in his face. You know what I mean? Just completely deaded any chance that he had to win the fight. And yeah, split decision victory. It was a dominant victory as far as like rounds go, but didn't seem too dominant. Not the type of performance that I think would earn you a title shot over the winner of Whitaker and Hamzat. Like if Whitaker goes out there and finishes Hamzat or just, wins in exciting fashion, I think anything's better than this performance, man. And you got to also consider the level of opponent. This is a 7th-rate Paulo Costa, a guy who just didn't look that good in the Luke Rockhold fight. I forgot who did he even fight prior to that. Just not as active as you'd like him to be. I just don't think it's a very respected win. I think with an opponent like this, you got to go out there and make a statement. Because beating a Costa is not the same as beating a Whitaker or Hamza in that case. So this round drama, I think Strickland's he's got to win, but he's kind of starting a little low if this was like PFL ranking. So definitely another performance you'd like to see to demand a title shot too. And then you got Dricus and Izzy. That's probably gonna happen. We gotta see what happens there. But and then you have Imavov and Cannonier. I think if Cannonier goes out there and like knocks out Imavov, or if Imavov knocks out Cannonier, even though Strickland technically Cannonier actually beat Strickland. Even though I thought watching that fight that Strickland won. Yeah, that's technically a win on his record, but I think Cannonier could easily leapfrog Strickland if he has a good performance against Imavov, because this wasn't it, to be honest, and the fans ain't really mess with it. But yeah, now going to the main event, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. What a fight! What a title fight! What a main event! You know what I mean? Just to cap off what was honestly not that good of a pay-per-view. Honestly, the pay-per-views the last 5 fights, and yeah, not crazy good. It didn't really heat up till like the last 3, but yeah, Nico Price, Morono. I ain't really watched these fights, but from the looks of it, not crazy good performances. Not something that you're really gonna remember them first 2 fights, but it ended off strong. I think a good main event can really set the tone for like how it's remembered, and I think a lot of people are gonna remember Islam Poirier. Very good title fight, classic fight. Definitely something that you're gonna have to rewatch, man. Something that you're gonna have to go back and really dissect, man, all the stuff that we saw from Islam Makhachev. Going back, actually, just slight segue. Can we dead this whole thing that Paulo Costa has power? We gotta stop saying that, bro. Like when we mention Paulo Costa and stuff, no, like we have to. I don't know where this came from that he had power. The guy doesn't have power. He doesn't have like crazy pop. He just has T-Rex arms and big muscles. He doesn't really have pop to his punches. If anything, Strickland has more pop than him. So I don't want to, if whatever future Costa fight happens, I don't want to ever hear someone say. Now, I will say, I mean, going into his fight, he fights like a power puncher, kind of like. That's kind of how he kind of goes about his fight. Relies heavily on the athleticism. Has a lot of it, you know. He, honestly, in this fight, looks like he kind of rounded out the skills, but that's how you kind of describe him as, is a power puncher. But there's some power punchers who don't got power. I think Costa falls in. I know that sounds so counterintuitive, but watch Costa fight, bro. That guy, I don't know. I don't want to hear people, and I'm part of it too. I'm the one calling him a power puncher, but he falls in that category. Maybe not a power puncher, but he's a big, hulky guy, sturdy for the most part. It's the type of guy that gives Strickland problems. But yeah, please, can we not, like, when we talk about Costa, we can't keep saying that he has power, man. The guy, like, where is this coming from? Like, the Rockhold fight proved it, and then, you know, Strickland was rocking him. He had more pop on his punches. He landed clean on Strickland multiple times. Didn't move a bit, you know what I mean? So, I don't want to hear narratives that, like, Costa's, like, a power puncher no more, but, like, this guy's not a power puncher whatsoever. Anyways, Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, great fight from round 1 to round 5. Biggest thing coming out of this fight for me, I feel like, was, first of all, Poirier's heart. You know what I mean? Just staying in the fight. Round 1, he was mostly dominated for a lot of the fight. Like, it seemed like a very, I don't want to liken it to Pena Nunes too, because that fight could have got stopped multiple times. But I liken it to that because it was a very competitive, one-sided fight. I think there were moments where Dustin, for sure, stood up for himself, but Islam was mostly the bully. Islam was taking him down. Islam was beating him on the feet, outstriking him, beating him at his own game. I think we just, like, Poirier was that big of an underdog that we kind of, any success that he had was just overestimated, you know? But we have to, like, consider this. Like, Islam went out there and outboxed Poirier, the guy who was supposed to have the success on the feet, have all the tools to make stuff happen on the feet. And he did. I mean, there were hooks that landed. He had a really good elbow as Islam Makhachev was coming up. But just not he had a lot of time on the feet to work. A lot of time to make something happen, and it just didn't really come to fruition in the fight. So he did a good job. I think, honestly, Islam Makhachev, it doesn't get enough credit for the striking ability. I know people are going to liken it to, oh, he's just a good wrestler, so that creates a threat that, people don't want to, mess with him too much on the feet. But you got to give him credit, man. He was doing a lot of good knees in there, a lot of good shots. He's rounded out his game to where he's a threat anywhere the fight goes in the fight. So you got to give him credit there. Now, I'm trying to think, round 5, was it? Yeah, that's when the submission happened. I was geeked, man, because that round, it seemed like Poirier, he even said in the post-fight interview, just chipping away. And it seemed like Islam, shades of the Volk, the first fight, guy was able to stuff the takedowns, a guy who was able to keep the fight standing and just land shots. And people get behind, a lot of people were, behind Dustin Poirier in the American crowd in New Jersey, right? Yeah, New Jersey. Every shot that Poirier landed, and Islam, you could see the sigh of relief for Khabib when he did land that Dutch choke. I'm going to talk about that later, but Islam, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, Poirier. Yeah, where was I going with that? I don't even know. This is the problem with, not having a direction to where I'm just talking, man. I'm just, yapping out the door. Usually I don't get, off track like this, but anyways, okay, round 5. Round 5, Islam, Dustin, striking. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, going into the fight, it just seemed like he was chipping away at Islam. My bad, guys. I had a little bit of, I had to, remind myself what I'm even talking about. Basically, what I was getting at is shades of the Volk fight. A guy who was able to stop the takedowns, a guy who was able to come forward and land shots. But in that 5th round, instead of getting the dominant position, instead of getting on top and ending strongly, MMA is not a fairy tale. MMA is not some sort of story. WWE, Cody Rhodes, finish your story. This is real life, bro. And Islam Makhachev failed the takedown. I think he somehow latches onto him. He kind of just pulls him into a circle, gets onto the back, guillotine first. And this is a nasty Darce choke in the 5th round, in the dying minutes. This is 2 minutes to go. I'm interested to see what the scorecards are. Maybe they were generous to Poirier. I doubt it. It was probably 4-0, but Dustin needed a finish. Yeah, man. Islam showed that championship pedigree, showing why he's that guy, showing why he's that man, showing why he's the truth. He's that guy. He's the most dangerous guy. He's the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Went to battle with Poirier. Now, I think people are going to be very critical of Islam Makhachev. They're going to be docking him points oh, you should have finished this guy round 1. Look at what Khabib did. There's always going to be those comparisons. You got to give him his credit, man. To battle adversity, to come out on top, to do what he was able to do, very good. But there are some fair criticism. I think we have to check ourselves when we talk about Islam Makhachev striking. Not striking, but grappling. I think we get too caught up on he's such a good grappler and he's such a good striker. He's so well-rounded. The thing that makes him the most well-rounded is the grappling. And the grappling, interesting enough, I'm looking at the stats right here. 5 takedowns, 2 sub-attempts, 10 minutes of control time. 10 minutes of control time. So what? 4 times 5 is 20. And then 2 minutes, 42 seconds, right? So 22 minutes of the fight for 10 minutes of that. So basically half the fight, he was controlling Dustin Poirier in some sort of way. And a lot of that time he was on his back, just fighting for a submission, fighting for that rear naked choke in dominant positions. Could not get a submission. Very interesting right here. So maybe you could liken that to, Poirier's really good defense. We've seen performances like this where, Derek Lewis versus Jailton Almeida. We still consider Jailton Almeida an elite specialist at what he does. I didn't see people, say, narrative shift, he can't finish guys. So I'm not gonna sit up here and be Islam Makhachev not the grappler that we thought he was, but it's very interesting to see. Maybe if you're another guy, if you're a Rafael Fiziev, if you're a Arman Tsarukyan, if you're a Gamrot, you look at this and you're like, if I can stuff the takedowns and I can match, because you also got to think, too, this is 10 minutes of control time. Is he getting 10 minutes of control time on Arman Tsarukyan, on Gamrot, on Fiziev, on, no names are really, we'll just say BSD for the examples. But is he doing that to those guys? I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. I don't know. But now you just make this a purely striking match for however long it is. You'd have to favor Islam, but the fight gets a lot easier in that sense, you know? 4 guys. So it's interesting that I was so shocked that he wasn't able to get the submission in some of the spots that he had him. I mean, just perfect. He had him in mount, I think, a couple times, just really advantageous positions. And it's a lot easier said than done. I mean, you got to get creative, you know? It's almost, mount is not as, you know, you get a fighter to mount, usually that's the end of the fight. But now it's not. Fighters are getting so good at defense. They're getting so good at, you know, pulling the arms in, making sure that you can't just finish the fight right then and there. It's really hard. And even when you get on the back, like, now fighters are really good at defense to where, you know, an elite fighter like Poirier, it's not game over necessarily if you get their back, whereas before it might have been. So just, you know, new intricacies of the fight game, you know, I think it just growing as a whole. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, how did Poirier lose against Olivier, rear naked choke? How did he lose against Khabib, rear naked choke? It's possible that Poirier learned from that, you know what I mean? Maybe it's not going to be as easy going forward, getting his back and just choking him. If he even fights again, that's another whole narrative. But how about whether he fights again? What's he going to do? But overall, interesting fight. I think we definitely do got to check ourselves about Makhachev being... Here's what I'll say. I don't think Makhachev is invincible like everyone makes him out to be. I saw an interview with Arman Saryukin on the Ariel Helwani live show, like an audio clip of it, and he's like, oh, like everyone think, I don't know why I'm doing an accent. Let me just, no. But he was basically saying, like, everyone thinks this guy's invincible. This guy's not invincible. Like, this guy can be beat, and I'm going to be the one to knock him out. And that's not a crazy proposition. I think we've seen Makhachev go through the Volk fight. These are things that we didn't see with Khabib. You know, at least with Makhachev, we've seen those vulnerabilities. We've seen him get killed by Adriano Martins. We've seen him struggle against Volk. Now we've seen him in this Poirier fight. It's not complete dominance, you know? And I'm sure, honestly, in a rematch, who's to say Islam doesn't KO him in one like he just did Volk, you know? Obviously, I had his own issues in that fight, but, you know, great. You know, great at making those adjustments, great at just coming back better and making those improvements. Islam Makhachev he has great people in his corner. But, yeah, man, I mean, Islam, pound-for-pound fighter, great fighter. Honestly, I mean, even though I do say that he's beatable, he's not invincible, I don't see a guy who can beat him, you know? He's definitely beatable, but who's going to beat him, I think? I mean, we can take a look at the UFC rankings. I'm going to just put that up real quick. Just give me one moment as I pull these up. UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier. We are live. We're on the main page right here. Okay, we have the rankings right here. So, lightweight. So, we have Arman Saryukin. I think Islam beats him. Charles beats him. Gaethje beats him. Poirier beat him already. Gamrot. Like, it's just not... Even though I do think there are ways to exploit his style, and maybe he'll have some tough fights, I mean, he's going through the ringer and coming out on top, you know? So, that Arman fight, though, is a lot more interesting now, I think, though. Now more than ever before. Like, you can't just assume that, oh, he'll just run past him, he does everything better. Like, I think that Arman fight's really good, and I'd like to see him fight before he moves up to another weight division or does anything there. But, yeah, I mean, this inevitability that, oh, like, he'll just beat Leon, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not so sure. Leon has good takedown defense. Yeah, I mean, Islam is, as much as he is the greatest fighter of all time, he's a bad man. He's showing he's human. And I think that would have happened, the same thing would have happened to Khabib if he fought long enough. Happens with all fighters, man. I mean, it's hard to do what you do at the highest level for as long as these guys have done it. Keep fighting elite fighters and not get found out at some point. You know, I think John Jones is, he's his own person, man. That guy's special, but, you know, he would have, if he fights a guy like Aspinall or Curtis Blades and doesn't, you know, retire like he says he will. But even a Miocic's fight, that's a hard fight in itself, too. It just goes to show, man, that you just fight long enough, you know, you will get found out. And Islam, a young fighter. He's had his dominant fights, but he's also gonna have his tough fights, and that's part of being a champion. You're not always gonna run through every single guy in 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. There's gonna be some tough fights, and this was and that's the thing too. It's like I don't want to be critical because he won in dominant fashion. He won every single round prior, and they got the 5th round submission. And I'm over here talking about it was a tough fight. It's pretty dominant, but not what we expected. I think a lot of people thought that Poirier would wilt quicker, but this is a guy facing retirement in the face, daughter in the crowd, family in the crowd, mom, I think he said grandma, all of the U.S. behind him. He was never going to, not that he really had a choice. If Islam's that good, he should be submitting him like that, but Poirier worked on his defense with Gamrot, got good with the grappling, and it showed in the fight. So, yeah, great fight. Islam showed that he has that championship spirit. Round 5, he can still go. Even though it looked like he was slowing down, I still feel like his cardio was there. He was still pushing forward. It didn't seem like he gassed out that bad or fell off a cliff in those later rounds. And Poirier, just a living legend. If he comes back, great. If he doesn't, great. Whatever decision, I think you got to respect that as a UFC fan. Love to, there's this thing too. People are like, I saw someone say Poirier is one of the only guys I'd be interested to see in boxing. I don't know, man. He did kind of just get pieced up by Makhachev. I know I don't want to be that guy. I know it's wrestling, but yeah, no, he's a good boxer. I don't want to be a hater. You know what I mean? But yeah, you got to see that matchup. I'm not watching Poirier fight any old bum. It's got to make sense. But definitely, man, whatever money making opportunity he can make outside the UFC, I'd love to see it. Grappling, boxing, kickboxing, karate combat, whatever he does. BKFC, that'd be fun. So, shout out to Poirier, shout out to Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is the best fighter in the world. Future GOAT, honestly, it's looking like the way he's just, chugging along and getting these title defenses. And, hey, man, who's to say he doesn't capture a second belt and keep defending the lightweight belt as well. So, that's all I really got for the video. Great card. Great main event. Not great card, but it is what it is. You're going to get cards like this. I'm going to be back next week for UFC Fight Night UFC Louisville, I think, yeah. UFC Fight Night Cannonier Imavov. Some decent fights on there, too. But, yeah, that's all I really got for y'all today. Leave a like on the video, subscribe. Peace out. You know what it is.